Welcome to Creepy Conjures, where the eerie meets the unexplained. Step into a world of dark tales and sinister secrets, where every story is a doorway to fear. Dare to enter, and let the nightmares begin. Story number 1. When I first moved to the city for the new job, everything seemed to be falling into place. I was excited. Fresh start, solid career at the hospital, and I even found a decent roommate, some guy named Mark who seemed chill enough. It was a smooth transition, at least at first. Before finding Mark though, I had downloaded this roommate app. Seemed like the easiest way to get a place quickly. I scrolled through profiles, checked a few, and then I came across Amy. Her profile was normal, nothing stood out. We started chatting, going over the basics, rent, location, all that. But then she started asking me questions that felt off. "So, do you have a girlfriend?" she asked. "Are you close with anyone?" I thought it was strange, but brushed it off. It got weirder when she said she had medical conditions and needed someone to help her in case she had an episode during the week. She wanted to know if I'd be around to take care of her. That's when my gut told me something wasn't right. I stopped replying, let the conversation die off. I figured that was the end of it. Weeks passed, and I had forgotten all about Amy. I found Mark as a roommate, and moved in without a hitch. Life was good. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text. It was Amy. "I'm so excited for you to move in, Ryan. I can't wait for us to be together." What? My skin crawled. I blocked her number, no second thoughts. It felt invasive. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, and now this. But things didn't stop there. Not long after, I started getting messages on Facebook from profiles I didn't recognize, all asking the same thing. "When are you moving in with Amy? You'll cherish this moment for the rest of your life." Different names, different faces, but the messages were identical. Worse, one said something that made my heart pound. "She knows your schedule at the hospital. Mark won't cherish you like she would." That's when I realized this wasn't just random online harassment. She was watching me. Somehow she knew when I worked, where I lived. The messages kept coming, flooding my inbox. I blocked every profile, took a break from social media altogether, trying to regain some sense of control. Eventually the messages stopped. Silence, finally. But it didn't feel like relief. It felt wrong. Every time I walked to my car after a shift, I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on me. The parking lot, the quiet streets. It felt like I wasn't alone. The worst part is, I have no idea what Amy looks like. She could be anyone. The people I pass at work, the patients I see every day, or someone sitting in the hospital cafeteria. I don't know where she is, but I know she's out there, watching, waiting. Story number 2. When my parents dropped me off at the dorms, I tried to look excited for them. It was what they wanted, what I wanted too. College was supposed to be this whole new adventure, right? A chance to meet new people, explore new places, start fresh. I was nervous, but it faded when I met Daniela. She was friendly, easy to talk to, and we clicked instantly. We started doing everything together, exploring the campus, figuring out where to grab food, finding those hidden hangouts in this small town that everyone swore by. It felt like I'd known her for years. The only hiccup? Daniela's boyfriend, Nathan. She kept getting texts and calls from him, but she wasn't avoiding him on purpose. We were just so busy trying to settle in. She mentioned him often, said how much she missed him, and I could tell she felt bad for not being as available. Finally, she asked if I wanted to meet him when he came to visit that weekend. Of course, I said yes. I mean, why not? We met him at a small coffee shop just off campus. He was tall, skinny, looked normal enough, I guess. Daniela introduced me with this big smile, and I smiled back, extending my hand. But when his eyes locked on mine, I felt something. Not just discomfort, disgust. He gave a brief, "Hi," but the way he stared at me made my skin crawl. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting. I ordered my coffee, and we sat at a table. Daniela excused herself to use the restroom, leaving me alone with Nathan. The silence stretched between us, awkward and thick. I tried making small talk, asking him how long he was staying. He didn't respond right away. He just leaned forward, glaring at me. "So, you're the slut who's been taking all of Daniela's time?" He spat. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I thought it was some kind of joke, a really bad one. "What?" I muttered, glancing around the room, but no one seemed to notice what was happening. "I bet you've been parading her around to all the guys at college, haven't you? You just can't help yourself." His voice dripped with venom, and suddenly, his hand was on my sweater, pulling me closer. I jerked back, eyes wide. This wasn't a joke. He was serious. "Don't you dare try to leave," he growled, keeping his voice low. "If you walk out now, Daniela will freak out and leave with you. So, you're staying right here. Got it?" My throat tightened, and all I wanted to do was scream, to run. But I couldn't. Daniela came back, her eyes bright and cheerful as she sat next to him, completely oblivious to the horror I'd just experienced. "So, you guys getting to know each other?" she asked, smiling. Nathan smiled too. "Yeah, we were just talking about all the fun you two have been having." I forced a weak smile, gulping down the rest of my coffee just to have something to do with my hands. I was screaming inside, praying for her to notice, for her to feel my urgency. But she didn't. The next 30 minutes felt like hours. Eventually, we stood to leave. Outside the shop, Daniela asked where we should go next. "Oh, I think I'm heading back to campus," I blurted out, desperate to escape. "I need to get ready for class tomorrow." Daniela raised an eyebrow. "But you don't have class on Saturday?" I stammered, my mind racing for an excuse. Yeah, I switched to class last minute. Must have slipped my mind. Sorry." I didn't wait for her reply. I just started walking, my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't stop until I was back in my dorm, slamming the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I locked it. Then I crumpled onto my bed and cried, letting out all the fear, the confusion, the helplessness. The next morning I submitted a request to change roommates. I didn't care how it looked, or if it upset Daniela. All I knew was that I never wanted to see Nathan again, and I never wanted to be alone with him ever again. Story number 3. When my old roommate Mike told me he was moving in with his girlfriend, I wasn't surprised. It had been in the works for a while, and as much as I liked the guy, I was kind of excited for the change. New roommate, new vibes, you know? So when Jason answered my ad, he seemed like a decent enough dude. Clean, quiet, paid rent on time. That's all I really cared about. But within the first couple of weeks, things started to feel off. It was little stuff at first. Jason kept odd hours. Sometimes he'd be gone all night, and then crash in his room during the day. He didn't seem to have a job, yet somehow always had money to blow. I figured he was one of those tech freelancers or something. Then there were the visitors. Random people would show up at the apartment at weird times, early mornings, late nights, always staying for just a few minutes before leaving in a hurry. None of them ever said a word to me, just nodding as they brushed by. I started getting suspicious. I mean, what else could it be? The guy had to be selling drugs, but I didn't really know what kind. And honestly, I didn't want to know. As long as I wasn't involved, and he wasn't drawing too much attention to us, I figured it wasn't my problem. Still, something about it gnawed at me. Maybe it was the way Jason acted so jittery sometimes, or the heavy locks he put on his door, the way he'd close the blinds anytime someone came over. Even though I told myself it wasn't any of my business, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. One night, after hanging out with some friends at a bar, I came home a little drunk. Not wasted, but buzzed enough that I wasn't exactly steady on my feet. I didn't even make it to my bed. I just flopped down on the floor next to it. The carpet was surprisingly comfortable when you're that tipsy. I passed out almost instantly. It must have been the middle of the night when I woke up. I wasn't sure what had roused me at first. Everything was still dark, and the apartment was quiet. But then I heard it. Voices. They were coming from Jason's room, low and tense. At first, I thought maybe he had some of his usual friends over, but then I heard one of them say something that chilled me to the bone. "Where is it? I know it's in here somewhere." Another voice, gruffer, replied, "Are we sure this is his room?" I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. Whoever these people were, they didn't sound like Jason's usual visitors. And the fact that they were rummaging around in his room, they weren't here for a friendly chat. I crawled across the floor as quietly as I could, my body shaking with adrenaline. There was a small space behind my dresser that I could just about squeeze into. I held my breath as I wedged myself in, praying they wouldn't come into my room next. From my hiding spot, I could hear more clearly now. Drawers were being opened and slammed shut. Papers rustled, something heavy thudded to the floor. They were tearing Jason's room apart. "We don't have time for this," the gruff voice said again. "Find it, and let's go." I heard footsteps pacing back and forth, each one feeling like a countdown to something terrible. I didn't dare move, barely even breathing. Every muscle in my body tensed like a coiled spring. Then, just as suddenly as they had started, the noises stopped. "Got it," one of the voices said. "Let's get out of here." I didn't hear Jason's voice. He hadn't said a word the whole time. Maybe he wasn't even there. Or maybe they'd already done something to him. I didn't know. All I could do was listen as they left the apartment, the door clicking shut behind them. I stayed hidden behind the dresser for what felt like hours, even though it was probably only minutes. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had I just witnessed some kind of robbery? Or had it been worse than that? Eventually, as the first light of dawn crept in through the window, I mustered the courage to come out of hiding. My body was stiff and aching from being crammed into such a small space, but fear kept me moving. I stepped out of my room and made my way to Jason's door. It was open, just a crack. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting to see him inside, sitting on his bed, maybe pissed off about the break-in. But Jason wasn't there. His room was a mess, drawers pulled out, his mattress flipped over, clothes and papers strewn everywhere, but no sign of him. Later that morning, I found out the truth. Jason had been killed earlier that night. A drug deal gone bad, they said. He was found in an alleyway not far from our apartment, shot in the chest. The guys who broke in, they must have been looking for whatever stash he had left behind. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I knew something was off about him, but I never thought it would end like this. I never thought I'd be in the middle of something so dangerous. It's been a few weeks since Jason died. I haven't been able to sleep properly since. Every little noise in the apartment makes me jump. I keep thinking about those guys, the way they tore through his room like animals, the way they left without a trace. What if they had come into my room? What if they had found me? I don't know how much longer I can stay here. The apartment feels tainted now, haunted by what happened. I guess it's time to start looking for a new place, and next time, I'm going to be a lot more careful about who I let move in, because I never want to be this close to danger again. You've reached the end of another dark tale from Creepy Conjures. If the story left you with chills, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more haunting horrors. Don't forget to ring the bell so you'll be the first to know when the next nightmare is unleashed. Until we meet again, stay safe if you can.